Welcome to Beyond Sundays, a podcast from two friends trying to follow Jesus more closely. Odds are you won't always agree with us, and we'll stumble along the way, but we promise to be open and honest all the way through. I'm Matt here with Hannah today, and we've got a semi-new, I don't know, is it starting to pick up a little bit of rust? Website where you can keep all of our show links and our socials all in one place. Check out beyondsundays.pod.com. We're grateful for all of our listeners and genuinely thank you for fitting us into your busy life. You can help us grow this growing community by following, rating, and reviewing us on Apple and Spotify. We definitely have the best people in the community.
We do.
Hannah, for those people not listening on YouTube right now, rate the fit that you see in front of you.
I have to just say, fedora takes it down to a 1. I think the only person I think that can wear a fedora and he listens is Adam. I really do.
Okay.
I really feel that way. My dad tries to come out in them sometimes. Sorry, Dad. I'm like, meh.
Okay.
Not working for me. Adam, the only person I think that
listen,
can do it.
I'm going to stand up and let you get the full effect because it was Tacky Tourist Day today. This is an anti-drug week, so it's for a good cause. So I've got a Yellowstone hoodie on, a lei on, a fedora on, and
oh my gosh, swim trunks.
Just pink flamingo swim trunks. So if you're on YouTube right now, I'm sorry to scar you, but that is what I wore all day at school today. Are you when there's a dress up day at your school, you go all out?
I think I'm probably middle to a little higher than middle.
Oh, that surprises me.
Our good friend Ashley is incredible. Like has dressed up, painted her skin as like Ursula has done that.
Oh, wow.
But like anytime I always dress up. Anytime there's something that we're doing, but I'm not like painting my face to do character day. Although I do have the best costume for Halloween like ever. My mom gave me this hideous jacket thing and I told her I didn't want it. She left it here and then I came up with the idea. So there's some of that. I like to dress up sometimes, but
okay. All right. I find that a little bit surprising. So yeah. So speaking of tourism, I was just on a field trip through my school on Saturday to Memphis, Tennessee. And the whole purpose of the field trip is just we took 70 high school students, 5 teachers, and we went down there.
I thought you only took Memphis like 12.
Stuff. Oh no, 70.
Yeah, actually, I thought you told me 7. I'm almost sure that's holy cow. That changes the whole thing.
0. We was walking in Memphis on Beale Street, baby. 70 teenagers, and they were wonderful. Just shouts out to all of them, like super well behaved, all that good kind of stuff. I did wake up at 3:30 on Saturday morning, and I got home at 12:30 a.m. on Sunday morning. So I got to tell you,
insane.
I'm still pretty cooked at this point.
So what do you guys take? Do you take a bus or do you take little vans? Or
you didn't even know this is where I'm headed, and this is where I'm headed. I do have a story for you. So traditionally, we have taken 2 big yellow school buses, but this year our district has bought a couple of we call them party buses. They're like the 15 passenger activity buses, similar to what our church has. Yeah. And so I drove one of those. It just saves like $1,000 off the trip, and it lets us do more things. But I hate driving, so. Anyway, here's your story. I am driving. So I've got 14 seniors on my bus. They're great. We're having a great time. And we're driving on an interstate in Memphis. And we had to skip a stop that we were going to do because something else took longer. And we were going to go by the Lorraine Motel where Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis in 1968. And I had just, I just listened to a podcast the night before and like to refresh myself on all these details. I had this story I was going to, I was going to give my podcast in the parking lot. Yeah. And so the kids on my bus, they want it. So I am driving through traffic, trying to be on my A game, telling this story, watching everything, making sure everything's okay, making sure there's a yellow bus behind me and a white one behind that, just doing a lot of things. And I am right at the point where, and I'll spare the listeners all these details, but I'm right at the point where the night before Dr. King's assassinated, he gives this legendary sermon where he's talking about he's been to the top of the mountaintop and he's seen God's let him see over to the other side. Yeah. And of course, that brings up Moses getting to see the promised land, but can't actually go in it. So he gives that sermon and then he dies the next day. So it's just this kind of
It's
legendary thing.
wild.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm telling this story and I'm like, and the power of God just really was like really moved on Dr. King. And at that moment, a big pickup truck drove way too fast by me, way too close to the party bus, and it like popped the suction on the doors. So the doors
Oh.
flew up on the side, like papers flew up, and I'm literally talking about the power of God coming on Dr. King, and it was just like boom.
Oh my.
And so there's like crap flying all over the butt, like no issues, everything was safe. Like I was in control the whole time, but like that truck could not have come by
What
at a
did
better
everybody
time.
do?
They were just like, oh, it was like a crazy tent revival service we just had right there for five
You should
minutes.
have just went along with it and
And
just
the actor like,
pretended
the
it
Lord
was.
said, just really started in on him. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
So
would have been freaked out.
no, there's something about that. I don't know what it is, but like I love solving problems like that. Like when
Really?
you're under pressure and there's 70 people waiting for you and something goes wrong. And I just love kicking it into gear and doing what I can to solve that as quick as I can. There's something about that I'm kind of
You
addicted
know
to.
what? That is one thing I did not know about you.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I knew like you are a problem solver. Like I know
Sure.
that, but I didn't realize that you really enjoyed that under pressure like that.
I do.
Interesting.
My perfect thing is if like the church took a trip somewhere, like your youth group, and I went along, like you'd be in charge and you'd have the plan and you'd lead it. And then I could go behind you and like make sure the 70th kid has crossed the road with their crutchet and like just go behind you and take care of all these problems so you would never know about it. I would love that.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Listen,
we may have to start planning something.
I'm great. I'm great on a trip. I am like a
I
premium
knew
travel
that.
accessory. Oh, I'm
I
I'm so
knew
good on a
that,
trip.
but
Yeah.
just to enjoy it, like I did not know that.
I don't
That
know. We went to an escape room and they were kind of failing at their job a little bit, and I basically ended my escape room experience as an assistant manager at the escape room. Like I was checking their computer system. I was working. I was basically working there. So it's just
Oh
good times,
my
you know.
gosh. Let me ask this about your trip.
Yeah, yeah, of
I
course.
barbecue is supposed to be a big thing in
Woo.
Memphis, right?
Had some barbecue
Okay.
nachos, baby.
Is it as good as I've never been to Memphis?
Oh, really?
One time I think maybe I went to a wedding, but it was outside of Memphis. It wasn't in Memphis. So I haven't, it was one day I was there. I haven't truly
All right.
like spent time there.
I'm going to say this about the barbecue. I think the barbecue is excellent. The barbecue nachos I had, I went to a restaurant that's like kind of built for barbecue nachos. They're very good.
Yeah.
I'll say this though. I like barbecue sauce enough that I could just get the Kroger brand barbecue sauce and put it on
Okay.
stuff, and I pretty much enjoy it. So I do like barbecue, but I have a hard time differentiating like excellent barbecue if I'm okay with like Kroger brand sauce. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like I really
Yeah.
like it, but it's just I like it all kind of.
And I think what I would like to know is what is considered good barbecue, because I
Yeah.
can taste that difference, like the
Yeah.
kind where you can
Yeah.
taste the smoke. Like, is that
Yeah.
considered like a delicacy, like the
I don't
best
know.
kind? I don't. We're gonna
I
have
don't
to have
know, but I'll
somebody
tell you
on.
this. I'd rather have like a Hershey bar than some of those fancy chocolates wrapped in the foil. So
Oh,
maybe it's just my taste palette.
one
It's
hundred
just
percent.
down in the gutters, you know?
Yeah, well, that's mine too. That shout out to me only eating chicken and cauliflower. That's another shout out to Adam.
Yeah.
He teases us about that all the
Oh,
time.
people talk. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, so I did not intend necessarily to have that story happen and talk about the assassination of Dr. King to start with this podcast, but it does kind of fit well with the
Sure.
themes and the topics that we're going to be talking about, and that is we're going to talk about my fear of death
Yeah,
and maybe yours because
yeah.
I have not honestly heard you talk about this too much. So a lot of times on this podcast, we'll kind of set the thing up and then end with our own personal feelings and experiences about it. I want to flip that.
Yeah.
And I just want to start with your personal experiences of death. And I have no doubt that you and all of our listeners, we've all experienced this. This is like, like a common human thing. So just in general, like the I don't know, death in your life. How have you experienced it? What has been your take on it?
So for me, I lost my grandma pretty young. I was like 8 when she passed. And
Mhm.
then and obviously like I remember that, but
Yeah,
also I was so young.
sure.
But at 19, I lost my cousin to a drug overdose. And so
Mm.
that was very, very impactful in my life.
Mhm.
And so I feel like I had to deal with that at a younger age, not than a lot of people, but then I
Sure.
should have had to deal with it. He was 17, I was 19. It just was an experience that it was a struggle for me.
You guys were
Uh,
very close, had a great relationship.
very
Yeah.
close, great relationship. Somebody that I say a drug overdose, and you'd just think it was somebody that had been doing drugs his whole life. But
Mhm.
no, it was truthfully, it was a short amount of time. And those that know him know he's the goofiest person in the world. So he only had one kidney, of course, which don't know how that happens, but he just did. And so I think that was a lot of what caused it. So I had to kind of grapple with a lot of things. I don't know if that's the word grapple. Can you say
Yeah.
that?
No, yeah, for sure.
With a lot of things at that point, because somebody that I thought was supposed to be protected, somebody that was in church, had the Holy Ghost, knew the Lord.
Mhm.
That was a lot to deal with and to kind of reconcile in my own life. And then I've lost grandparents as
Sure.
life has gone on. I think I'm kind of getting to that age
Yeah.
where that happens more often, but and we'll get into this at that same time. Culturally, it's always rough, even if it's time for someone to
Yeah.
move from this life to the next.
Yeah.
So those have been my personal experiences. Maybe more than I should have, maybe more deaths than should have been at a young
Hmm.
age, but
Hmm.
getting to the point now where I think grandparents are kind of getting older.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. Well, I've had experiences similar to yours in that I don't have any living grandparents. In fact, one of my grandpas, I just didn't know at all because he'd already passed away before I was born, and then
Yeah,
another died when I was quite young. So really, the grandparents that I lost that impacted me were my grandmothers, and I was in
yeah,
my teen years. But obviously, like the overwhelmingly big one, and probably honestly a genesis of where what I feel about death and my fear of it
sure.
was my dad passing away when I was 17. And I know that I've already mentioned that on this podcast, and just shouts to the Beyond Sundays faithful. You're going to hear me reference this, every
Yeah,
so often throughout the history of this podcast, because that is like a seminal, you know, four or five, probably one of the 4 or 5 most important events that's ever going to happen to me in my life.
yeah,
And like you, it's just like, well, that's not supposed to happen. My life is not supposed to be that way. We're quote
yeah,
unquote good people. A lot of the issues that you've talked about before about being protected and God not providing
yeah, yeah,
and just watching some of the things that my dad did as he deteriorated in the church, like has really left like a lifelong impact on me. And
yeah,
I know this is true for you too. I mean, I still had a great mom then. I still
yeah,
have a great mom now. So I don't want to say that I was like bereft and parentless, because that obviously was not the case. And I'm super thankful for my mom, and, shouts to all the moms up there for Mother's Day. But, that it's just at that age of 17, like you're in kind of that metamorphosis of life. You're
yeah,
transitioning, you're changing, you're growing. And those are difficult things to deal with. I mean, you talked about your cousin at 19. That's a hard age to deal with that kind of stuff.
yeah. And do you feel like in your situation that obviously, let me put it like this, did it affect
Yeah.
you feel like differently than your other brothers because of the different time, like the different ages?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I'll be honest, this is probably a failing on my part or our collective part. I don't know that we have talked about that and how we dealt with that, and what we haven't talked about it like openly a whole lot. And
Mm-hmm.
not because anybody's avoided it or it's some secret or it's been some kind of issue. It's just, to your earlier point, and something that you'll return to a little bit later, it's just we don't really deal with it and talk about it
No.
openly and share what we feel. It's kind of a to call it back to an episode which is kind of a taboo, right?
Yeah, yeah. Definitely feels like a taboo or something that people are just too afraid to talk about, you know?
Yeah.
Um, it is scary.
Well,
I feel like it is scary.
okay, so scale of 1 to 10, how scared this I'm just gonna put this as blunt as I can. How scared are you to die?
Um, I think okay, so I think on a good day, I'd
Mm-hmm.
say I don't think about it, maybe a 6. I think a lot of times though I'm sitting at a 9.
Mm. Do you think
Yeah.
about it a lot?
Um I think more so like this. Like this is so lame and I know it sounds so lame, but like I don't like the idea of not being with Liam any longer and him
Mm-hmm.
not being there
Mm-hmm.
or us not being able to be together. That bothers me a lot.
That's
Um
not lame. That's how you that's exactly
it
how you
it
should
it,
feel.
it but
Yeah, it's
like
wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah.
I that does bother me. Like there'll be sometimes we're just laying by each other and I'm like, oh, like I don't know how I would function. Like I want to go to heaven, but
Sure.
like if I die first and we're
Yeah.
not together, it's just a weird thought. And I do feel similar ways like with my parents. Um, anytime they get sick or they have an issue, I think about that probably
Hmm.
more than I should.
Hmm.
So I would say, it's definitely sitting at a 9
Yeah.
lots of times with death. I love life. Like I love
Yes.
my life. And so like there's not this comfort. I know there should be, but there's not this comfort for me thinking, oh, you're gonna die. I'm like, dang, this is really good. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not saying it is my personality. It's not because my life is perfect.
Yeah.
I really I enjoy the sunshine and the birds and my friends and my
Sure.
family. And I know there's something greater.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
I,
mean, I think I
I
sit
think
at
a
a
lot of
9.
Christians identify with this, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this right now, and I'm one of them.
I was gonna say, where would you rate
Oh,
yourself?
I'm a 9 or a 10 for sure. No
Okay.
question about it. I have probably, and I don't really say much about this. Michelle knows that I've had bouts of this, but I probably once a week I have to like talk myself out of the fact that I'm going to die soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I will do the thing, and you may do this too, where I will amplify any kind of perceived health problem that
Yeah.
I even
Yeah.
think I might have.
Yeah.
Like I'll wake up and my knee hurts and I'll wonder if
Yeah.
it's like bone cancer,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
go so far as to like be standing in the shower with my knee hurting, and I will like imagine myself in the doctor's office getting the diagnosis. Like it
Yeah.
just gets out of control for me. I had I have taken blood pressure medication and have had like heart palpitations, specifically like when doing cardio exercises. I
Yeah.
kind of discovered it in my 20s, and one of the people that I was working out with, she was she's a heart nurse
Yeah.
now. She works
Yeah.
at a facility. So anyway, I have taken blood pressure medication since my 20s, and I went through this really bad period where I had an Apple Watch on and it's got the
Yeah.
pulse function. And I would check, Hannah, I would check that Apple Watch, my pulse, I mean, 75 to 100 times a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would be sitting somewhere, not really doing anything. And I'd be like, why is my pulse 84?
Yeah.
Feeling like that was too high. And then I would just, and of course, when you start thinking about that, start having anxiety about that, that's going to push your heart rate
Oh
up.
my gosh.
And
Yeah.
so it was just I mean, I went to the doctor 3 or 4 times. I did not end up going on any kind of like anxiety medication. I didn't do any of that, but we
Yeah.
talked about it. So ultimately what I have to do is I just don't wear an Apple Watch. I
But it's smart.
cannot let myself get into that position. And again, this probably all stems from my dad. I mean, he was 47 when he died. I'm getting ready to turn 39 in 10 days, and a lot of times I think, man, what if I really only have 8 more? It's scary. I don't like it.
It is scary. And I have a lot of thoughts, and maybe this is, I don't know, weird too, but not like yours is weird, but like
No, it is. It is. It's
I'll
fine.
think about people who have died like in a car wreck or something, and I always think back, what were they thinking 30 seconds before that? Because life was just
Yeah.
fine. And I
Yeah.
don't know why, but that kind of makes me spiral a little bit because I'll be like, okay, what were they thinking? What happened? It's just a split moment and everything changes. I think about that a lot in the car. So I think maybe there's that fear of, I'm not scared in a car, but that fear of death being in a car. Um, yeah, it's scary. It just
It
is
is.
scary.
And like you, a lot of my fear comes from, I think, like some kind of personal pain, because I watched my dad get really sick and he
Yeah.
really did not feel good for a long time before he
Yeah.
passed away. And that was a horrible thing to watch. But then, equally with that, like you, like I have been with Michelle more days in my life than I have not. And I literally
Yeah.
don't even know, like, what would I do in my life if Michelle wasn't there?
Yeah.
And then I have my kids to rate, I want to be around for their weddings and see my great, all of those kind of things. And I just think like, I have so much to lose. I'm terrified to die. I just really,
Yeah. 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 I think one thing that does give me a little bit of solace when I start to like kind of freak out is the idea that other people that I love have done it. And I mean that in like
have
if
died.
yeah, like if
Yeah.
Grandma Mary's dead and Danny's dead, like at least they're there. And I know what I believe there is, but sometimes you get yourself worked up and think, well, what if that isn't what's next? And what
Yeah.
if, you start again, I know what I believe, but when you get worked up in that fear, it's like, well, what if there isn't anything? And what if those same people aren't, but I have to tell myself, well, they have done it. Surely it'll be fine. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not
I
saying
mean,
that gives me
every
lots of
human,
solace.
including Jesus Christ, minus a couple of people in the Bible, everybody's died.
And that is wild to me that it's such a taboo topic. Um,
Because there is nothing more human than dying.
there is not, and that's what's crazy. Sometimes I think about, and I really have been having this conversation with my dad a lot the last probably week and a half, just because of some health stuff with someone in my family
Mm-hmm.
about this idea of death being uh, just weirded out by it. But like, I was listening to a podcast from a guy who is a grief counselor, and he was talking
Mm-hmm.
about how in other cultures, death is not talked about the same way it is, or it is talked about more than it is here. I mean, we
Yeah.
just almost pretend like it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And then when it does, even when it's a 95-year-old man that or woman that's lived a great life, I get being upset, but
Mm-hmm.
that like that's going to happen. Like,
Yeah.
so why are we processing it the same way with this? I don't want to say you shouldn't be sad, but like it's this idea that oh my gosh, it wasn't supposed to be like this. And I don't know. Does that make
Well,
sense at
it
all?
is. It makes 100% sense. And this again, because we just did this episode on taboos not too long ago, this strikes me that there's a theme that's similar here in that, and this is wider society because we don't really talk about it. I mean, think of some of the euphemisms we use, and I've already used some of them. They passed away.
Yeah.
They're no longer with us. We even avoid like just tackling the issue head on sometimes.
Yeah.
And so what that does is it leaves everybody to their own imagination and their own thoughts and not really a way to, I mean, think of all the things that we do about people's mental health now. And we're always saying, talk about it, find somebody to talk about it, find somebody to talk about it. And this is a topic I don't really feel like society does that with.
Not at all. Not at all. We
Yeah.
don't talk about it at all. And that's again, it's shocking to me because everybody, everyone experiences it. That
Yes.
that is just astounding to me. We all experience, but I would say the majority, and maybe I'm wrong with that, but I think the majority of people are afraid to die.
Yeah, I would say so too.
I think most people are on
From
that
one
same.
thing to another. And some of it is like we don't know what is going to happen. We have beliefs about what will happen. We know what the
Yeah.
Bible says about what will happen. But when you get down to the root of it, it's still just a faith
It's still
thing.
and it's still unknown. I mean,
There's never been anybody go in and come back. I mean, there are stories, of course, of like miracles of people being prayed back to life. And I think
mhm.
those are amazing things. But there's nobody that's ever like died and stuck a GoPro on their forehead and you know what I mean? And then
That
come
would
back
be
and see
awesome.
footage of, yeah,
Yeah.
that would definitely be first in like a Heaven's movie theater draft. Like, what's it like to die?
Yeah.
But we don't have concrete evidence.
No.
And at some point, if we've talked on this podcast about doubting God sometimes about this or that, like what is more human than doubting about death sometimes?
Yeah. It's very human. And I think I want to say I think it's okay, but then at the same time, I think because we're not talking about it, we're doing a disservice. Like, I think we could be more comfortable with it if we talked about it and we made it. I don't know if you need to make it a joyous thing, but at the same time, like
No,
normal.
but just a part of life, you know?
It's just a part.
Like if
Oh,
you take Mexico's like Day of the Dead,
yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
Disney's made movies about it and Coco and all that stuff, but they like celebrate the ancestors and they've got their pictures out, and that's literally called the Day of the Dead, you know.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just think that that's got to do something to the people in that society and that culture where they kind of, you
Yeah.
know, they're, or just to give you another one real quick, the way Buddhists talk about death, kind of like astoundingly beautiful. They talk about it like you are like when an ocean wave hits a rock and you are this individual droplet of water that is up in
Yeah.
the air. Up in the air, that's your life. And then when you die, you are just returning to this mass body of water and you're just sinking into the rest of everything else. And there's, you know, I believe what Jesus says about death and not necessarily what Buddhists say about death. But I gotta say, I think Buddhists probably have a healthier way of dealing with it than most Westerners do because they've got these images and they've got these things that they're, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I
They're just
completely
talking
get
about
it.
these things.
Two things
Yeah,
I want to say about that. I would
sure.
call it kind of meditating. I was like out on my porch And
Mm.
I just needed to kind of clear my mind. And this is going to sound silly, but I was watching the leaves that you can oversee like on my porch from the trees in the front. And I just kept thinking about how the leaves, like they're just there doing their job. Like they're just there. But when
Mm.
their job is done, they
They
fall to
die.
the ground and they're like life continue. It's that was their purpose and then it's done.
Yeah.
And I found this solace in that. Like, okay, well, when I'm done, I will have done my purpose.
Yeah.
And then it's just a part of the cycle. The second thing though is my Aunt Lily, who is the mom of my cousin Danny, who died,
Hmm.
she said to me recently, because I said something like, I bring up Danny all the time. I mean, it's a frequent topic of conversation, but sometimes I get nervous to bring it up around certain family members because they don't want them to be bothered by it, to be
Sure.
upset. And I said that to my aunt. I was like, I just don't want to say I'm upset around you because I don't want you to feel this particular way. And she's like, Hannah, every time you bring up Danny, it's good for her because
Mm.
she's like, it reminds me that Danny was actually real. It wasn't
Mm.
this dream. It wasn't just this thing that I only remember. And so that's another way that I don't think we talk about death. We get so afraid to bring up the
Sure.
dead
We're
and to
trying to
talk.
consider other people though, which is a good thing.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think people want, and I don't want to speak for everybody,
Sure.
but I feel like people want to talk about it. People want, I mean, what about for your instance? Like, do you feel like you would have or do like to talk about your dad, or do you
Well, I
feel
mean, it's
like,
been 20 years at this point.
yeah,
So, the like acute sting that's not there anymore. Like, oh gosh, I still wish my dad were around for a billion reasons.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I do like to talk about him. I do like to reminisce. I do like to think about the stories. And I do just find myself wondering, and while you were talking, like if your aunt there are certain groups that I'm not sure your aunt could share those types of things because it's just a topic that we just shut off from each other
yeah,
because of fear, because of considering other people. And that's nice, but I think we're doing ourselves a disservice.
yeah, I think so too. And she mentions a lot. She was in a small group when Danny died, and then after, and in that
Mm-hmm.
small group, she said that's what saved her life because
Mm.
it was a Christian small group and she
Mm-hmm.
would just express exactly how she felt, how angry she was, what she was
Mm.
battling. And so there was a safe spot for her to talk about death. And I think we do a disservice when people are not provided that or they don't feel comfortable to talk about it openly, whether it's with friends or family. And I think it's everybody kind of walking on pins and needles, like, oh, what am
Yeah.
I supposed, it
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
such a touchy topic.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But to just reference another episode last week's, it's the power of your testimony.
Mm-hmm.
That is still God working in her life. We need
Yeah.
to be able to talk about and share and make sense of these kinds of things. So I brought a couple scriptures that I'll read to you, and because I want to start to talk about like the biblical way
Yeah.
or the way that the Bible enumerates and starts to talk about death. So it's 1 Corinthians 15, 54 and 55. They're super famous scriptures. It says, death is swallowed up in victory. Oh, death, where is your victory? Oh, death, where is your sting? And that's a quote from Hosea chapter 13. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that when the Bible echoes
Yeah,
itself.
I
I
do
think
too.
that's
I do too.
beautiful. And I love that. But it's almost like in some places in the Bible that death is personified as a person, a character,
Yeah.
an enemy in the scripture. And I'll be honest with you, when I read scriptures like that, and I think to myself, I don't know if I have victory over death. I don't know if that's how I feel about death. And sometimes I'm not sure if this is right or not, but I feel convicted about those scriptures because death has its victory. You know what I mean? I'm scared to death of death. And I don't know if I'm following that scripture.
Yeah. And I have started to think just in this moment, that term death, I mean, it literally means like dying on to the next life, right? That's the literal interpretation of it.
It is,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think again, that is a spot to reflect because I look at myself then. If I'm living at a 9, afraid of death, um, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that it's right to live that way. Um, I feel, and again, I mentioned these conversations with my dad. I feel like I have had this deconstruction of some ideas
Hmm.
in my beliefs, and again, it's not those core beliefs, but these thoughts on who we expect God to be. And I think sometimes my fear of death fuels this
Mm.
inappropriate view of God, such as I God's going to keep me from cancer, or God's going
Mm.
to do this or that, or I'm not going to get in a car wreck because God's going to protect me because I prayed it before I left.
Yeah.
And I think God, not I think God doesn't have the same view of death as we do.
No.
God's not looking at death as now. Obviously, I don't think God wants us to suffer from cancer, but I don't think that he looks at it the same way where, oh, if you die, oh my gosh, it's done. He's like,
It's so bad. No, that's the
it's
start.
that's the start. And so then I almost think, okay, well, that's a deeper rooted issue there. That to
Yeah.
me is a misalignment of who I think that God is. Um,
This is striking me as very similar to your storm stuff.
it is. I mean, it is.
It comes from the same root place, and I also
Does.
have that root. It's just
Yeah.
not about storms. It's about this topic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It goes deeper into that idea of I've always understood God to be this mighty protector, which he is.
Yeah.
But I think what we think he's supposed to protect us from, he's saying that's not the point. Like I'm not here to be a genie and to keep you from all. I mean, again,
Right.
like we talked about a couple weeks ago, Paul was then beheaded, you know, or
Yeah.
whatever it was,
Sure.
however he was killed,
Sure. Sure.
So God doesn't keep us from death. We're all going to die. So why aren't we talking about it more? Why aren't we more comfortable with it? And then it makes me look inward and think, yeah, maybe that, I don't know if I'd call it sinful. I don't know if it's just a part of the journey
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
figuring,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I definitely think we have the wrong approach to it, specifically because biblically, in Revelation, there's all this scriptural text about Jesus holding the keys to death and
yeah,
hell and the grave. And so it is I don't think that death is ever something we're supposed to like seek out or
no,
necessarily welcome, but it is not an enemy to us anymore. It is not the end, it's the beginning of something, much longer and more wonderful. But I think even our rituals in the church
yeah,
kind of sanitize it. And
yeah,
so like I just think about funerals I've been to, and there's so many things about funerals that are very odd to me. And maybe it's just odd because we kind of compartmentalize death and we shun it as much as we possibly can. And so then when we choose to display death, it is with a clean body and a very, most of the time a very expensive casket with
yeah,
flowers around it. And so it's almost like we try to mask the fact that the
yes.
person is dead with as much life as we can, as much beauty, as much money, and all of that is almost like to me that we are papering over the fact that this person is gone. Is that too crazy, too far to you?
No, I mean, and maybe this, I don't think this contradicts it. I know that I watched a documentary at some point of, it was a weird one, but he mentions Elvis
Those are the best
Presley.
kind.
They're the best. It's my jam. But Elvis Presley was displayed in the home for a long period of time after he died.
Mm.
And in our culture, it was considered like, oh, this is so weird. You get done, you have 2 days or one day, and you're done, and you move them along. But it was almost like the process of that was giving time to grieve.
Mm.
Still seems a little weird to me, but maybe there is something to that idea of like accepting death. And I don't know. I mean, it's just done differently. I will
It
say
is.
this could be, I don't know how I feel about this. So I'm just playing through this in my
Okay.
mind.
Sure. Open and honest, right?
I open and honest. So we pray for healing,
Mm-hmm.
which I do believe we should.
Mm-hmm.
But is this expectation for healing, is that I had a scripture I was thinking about too, and I can't remember what it was. Is that, I mean, it's not wrong, but are we focused too much on the wrong thing? Like when we're consistently praying for healing, God heal this, God heal, like, because I know for me, this is the thing for me. Um, Something I've had to work on is growing up, I would pray for things and I would go pray for someone in the altar and I would
Mm-hmm.
think, I'm praying as hard as I can. Like you're trying to feel it in every aspect of your
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
body. And then you walk out of there and that person is not healed and that person ends up dying. And
Yeah.
you hear some people say, "Oh, that's the miracle." Are we like do we talk about praying for healing in the wrong way
I
because
don't
we're
think
afraid
it's
of death?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I
That's
don't
what I was going
know.
to say. I don't think it's wrong because think about like that lady with the issue of blood and she pressed through the crowd and she touched the hem of Jesus' garment. Jesus wasn't at all mad that she pressed forward for a healing. Jesus healed, hundreds, probably thousands of people during his ministry. So I don't think the healing is wrong. The healing to me, I mean, there's other things it can be about. It can be about quality of life. It can be about your ability to serve the kingdom. It can be about a lot of things.
Sure.
But I do wonder because we're so motivated by this fear of death that yeah, maybe we're asking for the right thing, but the like the foundation of it is wobbly because we've got this underlying thing that we haven't dealt with. Let me
Yeah.
let me illustrate how weird I think that we treat death sometimes. And I was going to take us back to the casket and the funeral.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about this, but when people go through the line at a visitation and they reach down and they touch the person's body in the
Yeah.
casket, that makes me just want to projectile vomit every time that I see somebody do that.
What
Do you have
makes
that
you
reaction? Is that I'm just like, I cannot believe you are touching that dead body right now.
I don't have that reaction. I do think it's kind of weird that we dress people all up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but the touching, I mean, I've done that, but then it still doesn't feel like them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, but I do think it's I do think it's weird that we dress people up and do their face up and then it doesn't even really look like them. So like why do we do that? You know?
Well, there is a movement amongst some funeral homes to bring in certain parts of the country or certain funeral homes to bring the family in and have them part of the process of washing the body and preparing the body and spending time with the body before it's displayed.
Oh, wow.
And I can see on the look on your face, you think that's insane. But
Yeah.
like for most of human history, that's how it happened. The American funeral industry in the United States, and I'm not going to give like a 10-minute history lesson here, but it was born out of the Civil War because there was
Okay.
just massive amounts of death. And usually those guys are dying on a battlefield far away. So they needed to preserve the body to bring it home. So they started experimenting with different things and found different ways to preserve bodies. And so these people who got good at that just kind of went from town to town, like selling their services. And so it's kind of evolved and morphed into this thing where somebody dies. Let's just say traditionally, they die in the hospital. Somebody else takes the body. Somebody else preps the body. Somebody else gets the room ready. You make some decisions, but you're not with that person. You're not touching that person. You're not cleaning that person. Right. And so, like, it's almost like, and I don't know if I would sign up for that or not because of how odd that would be, but it's like we're
Yeah.
we're robbing ourselves of some of that grieving process by being with that person and just sitting with it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there's truth to that. And then I wonder, like, do you have to put all those chemicals in a body?
No, you don't
Are
have
we
to. I
just
mean,
doing
obviously, for most of human history, they just didn't have
yeah.
that. You know.
Because I'm thinking I really do feel lots of times that people don't look like themselves after they've all
Mm,
been done like that.
yeah.
And that's an interesting idea that I don't know how I feel about.
Well, I just think it goes to we're masking it. We
Yeah,
we
yeah.
mask it with the chemicals and we stay away from. I mean, there's obvious reasons to stay away from the decay, but we mask all of that stuff. And like when Jesus went to go see Mary and Martha after Lazarus died, they rolled the tomb away and they're like, Jesus, he's gonna smell bad. You know what I'm saying? Like he
Yeah.
he was not put off by the decay and of death, and that is something that we try so hard in Western culture to avoid.
Well, we try to put it in a box and make it pretty.
Yes,
Well,
literally,
literally in a
literally a
box
box yes, we do.
and make it
Yes.
pretty and
Yes, you don't have to look very far to just the symbolism at a funeral is just a blaring light on display of our uncomfortability with death and our
man, that's a good
unfamiliarity
point.
with it and that's the whole service is to shield us from the reality of it
Yeah, we're doing someone up to make them look as much like
as though
an
they are
alive
alive.
person
Yeah.
as we
Yep.
can.
Yep.
And I think you're right that fuels um that fear and
We
uncomfortability.
just don't have experience with it. Like,
No.
I mean, to make a stupid analogy, when I have to go into the driver's license facility once every 10 years to get my license picture updated or whatever, I have no idea what I'm doing in the driver's license facility anymore.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
know there's signs and they're telling me what to go, and the people are always angry. But I walk in there and I get stressed out. But like, that's what we do to ourselves with death. We
Yeah.
shield ourselves from it. And so we are not familiar with it. It's just not part of our existence.
Yeah, yeah. We don't talk about it, you know?
So, is the fear of death a spiritual red flag? Let's end with that underlying fear and spirituality. Is that a red flag that you and I are scared of death?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I just I do. I mean, I'm
Great.
not
Thanks a
saying
lot.
No, I mean, not okay. When I think of a red flag, I'm like, okay, maybe this is something you need to work on. Not so much like, oh, you're, going to hell because you have a fear of it. I'm not
Yeah.
thinking that.
Yeah. That would be
But
ironic.
that, yeah, seriously,
Yeah.
seriously. But my grandma Mary, even, she's my great grandma, but the songs, I've mentioned this before, the songs they used to sing were always about what was next, going to heaven. And
Yes.
so they
Yes.
lived their life in
Yes.
such a way that there was purpose after this. And I think sometimes in our culture, we focus so much on fixing the here and now
Mm,
that we're not living for what's next. And really, that's what this whole life is about.
it
It's
is.
about what's next.
Yes. I struggle, if I'm just sitting here talking with you, I struggle to think of a Bible character that was scared of death. Jesus is in the garden and he prays to avoid. I think he's praying there to avoid the just ridiculous amount of pain that he's going to have to go through. Like that is a horrendous death that he knows he's going to die. I think primarily that's what he's praying about. But like Moses was not afraid to
What
die,
about
Abraham was
Peter?
not afraid to die, Peter was not afraid to
Well,
die. Yeah.
but I think he was at first.
Okay.
When he denied Jesus,
Mm,
I think that was born out of fear of being killed. And maybe it was how he was going to be killed.
okay.
I mean, we see later on that changed. And I don't remember how Peter dies. I don't remember that specifically.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there must have been some fear
Hmm.
there.
Hmm. I don't know. I just kind of think I'm not sure how I think exactly we should orient ourselves. This is going to be a podcast as we draw to the end that we're not going to have like a clean and simple
Yeah.
solution for you. I just wonder if we need to, let me see if I can say this in a way that doesn't sound insane. I think we need to be more welcoming of death.
Yeah.
And I love the way that you put it, either like with the Buddhist with the droplet of water. I find that beautiful. And also beautiful is like the leaf changing color and falling off the tree.
Yeah.
Well, it did its job. And again, isn't our purpose of our whole life is to serve God. And so when he decides that our job is done,
Yeah.
it's almost, and again, we're not seeking death, we're not trying to die, but it is almost our reward, right?
Yeah, it
Now
is.
we are going to go be in glory with him forever
Yeah.
and ever. And I love so much the way that Paul writes about it because it says, like we are surrounded by this cloud of witnesses. That is such a beautiful idea.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
mom and, or sorry, my dad, my grandparent,
Yeah.
all these people are they're there and they're my cloud of witnesses. And we're
Yeah.
rejoining that. And there's something beautiful about that.
So maybe it's not even that we talk all the time about death. I do think there needs to be some more conversation about that.
Yeah.
But I think even more or just the same is about heaven and what's next and our purpose. And
Yes.
yes, we need to do this here, but it's because we're going there. And we know that, but I do feel like we don't talk about that the same way
Well, it's
that
funny
people
that
used
you
to.
say that because in our dumb Heavens movie theater draft, that was the conclusion, we came to at the end of that episode was kind of silly. This is
Uh-huh.
as serious as an episode as you and I have ever had. And we've
Yeah.
arrived at the same conclusion. We care about this life too much. We talk about this life too much. We spend too much energy on this life. And we do not spend enough energy and thought and imagination and conversation
Yeah.
about what is to come.
You put that in beautiful bullet points. That was great.
And if we did that more, I just think I, I don't know. Maybe not because I'm sitting here. I'm like, nope, I'm still afraid to die.
Well, but things don't change. That
Yeah.
that's the truth of the matter though is
In 43 minutes on a
they
podcast,
they
you're right.
don't they don't. It's
You're
it's
right.
an ongoing work
Yeah.
um that we both have to work on. And I in my own life, I do feel like I'm trying to put in the work. It hasn't changed everything. I mean, I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
But like my husband, he has no fear of death. No, I
Huh.
mean, when I tell
Huh.
you absolutely none, he has that same idea of when it happens and it's time to go, like it's what
If
happens,
Jesus is in control of death and hell and the grave, what
It
then he's in charge of it. What am I worried
he's
about?
done his job. I've lived my life. I don't have that energy at all.
I don't either.
Yeah.
That is the thing that convicts me the most is that I
Hmm.
spend all the rest of my life doing it whatever I can to try to tell myself Jesus is Lord and I trust him and I believe him.
Yeah.
And then with this issue, it's like I all that flies out the window for me and something else takes over. I don't know.
It the root of it. I think it's a trust thing.
Yeah.
And I say that because I'm reflecting on myself. Like it is, yeah, I do think it's a trust thing, right?
Yeah. You're probably right. I tell you what, listeners, why don't you write in and tell us, beyondsundays@gmail.com. If you've
Yeah.
got any thoughts that you have about death and how you deal with it. And I'm going to not schedule myself, but I'm legitimately going to try to talk to your husband about death and his mind frame, because if he's in a much better place than, what I'm saying? Like spiritually, if I was in a better place than somebody else, I would try to go help them. But we never seek that out either. We just
we don't.
off on
We
our own because nobody talks about it. Yeah. Nobody
You're supposed to
about
pretend like you're okay. Yep.
So, listeners, this is it. We were open. We were honest. We're both messed up with this one. Like sometimes Hannah is, sometimes I am. This time we both are.
We both are.
But here's the thing. I guarantee you there's a bunch of you listening right now that are like, yep, same for me too. Right. It's just a foreign topic to us. And so we'll continue going through this. Who knows? We may do another episode about this in the future. Maybe Liam will revolutionize me and I'll be good to go. But as always, we do want to thank you for joining us today. We always enjoy even kind of somber, tough conversations like this going beyond Sundays, and hope that you enjoyed our conversation. If you have any thoughts or comments about our topic today, please write in and let us know. BeyondSundaysPod.com for all of our social links. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and